Today, we will be discussing the case of Sharon K. Hammock, a 26-year-old woman who tragically lost her life on October 3, 1996. Let's delve into who Hammock was and the events surrounding her untimely death. Caledonia Charter Township, located in Kent County, Michigan, holds a significant place in history. Established as a survey township in 1838, it now forms part of the bustling Grand Rapids metropolitan area, situated approximately 10 miles southeast of the city itself. However, beneath its seemingly ordinary exterior lies a dark tale that unfolded within its borders. Sharon K. Hammock, born to Jacob and Lois Gross, initially led a normal life. She married, had 2 children, but unfortunately, the couple's differing opinions led to their separation. This separation, coupled with feelings of loneliness, drove Sharon towards drug abuse, which soon became her closest companion. Despite her desire to quit drugs, financial constraints forced her into sex work to support her family and fuel her addiction. It was during the late hours of October 2, 1996, that Sharon found herself in an unfamiliar and dangerous situation. The following day, on October 3, 1996, a delivery person on their regular route stumbled upon a body wrapped in a carpet. Recognizing the severity of the situation, they promptly alerted the authorities in Kent County. Deputies from the county arrived at 76th Street Southeast, between Patterson and Craft Avenue in Caledonia Township, where they discovered the lifeless body of a 29-year-old woman named Sharon K. Hammock. This horrific incident involved sexual assault, strangulation, 2 stab wounds to the head, hog-tying, and the dumping of the victim alongside a highway. The assailant left behind DNA evidence, including vaginal and rectal samples, as well as various items, such as a rope used for hog-tying. Tragically, Sharon, a mother of 2 and 4 months pregnant, fell victim to this heinous crime. This murder was one of the 12 Grand Rapids murder sprees in 1994. Despite the collection of DNA evidence, the lack of resources and technological advancements at the time hindered the identification of the assailant. Consequently, this case grew cold. In the years that followed, a series of crimes plagued the highways connecting the United States, Canada, and Mexico borders. Over 500 murders occurred along these routes, with more than 200 potential suspects identified. These strings would also establish a connection between instances of human trafficking that took place across different states. The likelihood of the culprits being long-haul truck drivers was high due to the multi-jurisdictional nature of these abhorrent crimes. In 2006, the Maryland State Police initiated an investigation into the murder of a woman who had been assaulted and fatally stabbed. The assailant had left behind DNA evidence on the victim's body. Over the years, there had been an increased focus on patrolling the highways due to the rising number of crimes, and this particular murder bore striking similarities to Sharon's case. Despite the heightened police presence, it took until recently to apprehend the murderer. On August 16, 2022, a routine traffic arrest was made involving an individual named Gary Artman. When the police ran a background check on his identification, they discovered that he had been arrested in 1982 for a sex crime and had served a 10-year sentence in Michigan before being released in 1992. Consequently, the Mississippi Highway Patrol took him into custody and reached out to the Kent County Sheriff's Office in Michigan. The DNA evidence found at the crime scenes on the highway was verified to match Artman's DNA. Through the collaborative efforts of the Mississippi State Highway Patrol, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigations, the Forest County Sheriff's Office in Mississippi, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office in Alabama, the Columbia County Sheriff's Office in Florida, the Michigan State Police Crime Lab, the Kent County Prosecutor's Office, and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, utilizing immunoglobulin G, it was determined that the DNA of the perpetrator from the 2006 Maryland case and the 1996 case of Sharon K. Hammock belonged to the same individual. Immunoglobulin G analysis revealed a familial connection within the DNA sequence, ultimately leading to the identification of Gary Dean Artman. His previous records indicated that he had been residing and working in Michigan at the time of Hammock's murder. Further investigations uncovered new evidence that linked Gary Dean Artman to the crime scene in Ontario, California, just before the tragic homicide took place. It was discovered that Artman was within a 20-mile radius of Ontario at the same time, as confirmed by local authorities. These crucial clues led to the arrest of Gary Dean Artman after 26 long years, and he is currently being held at the Forest County Sheriff's Office in Mississippi. The Kent County Sheriff's Office is actively working on extraditing Artman to Michigan, although the process is still ongoing. Finally, after all these years, the cold case has been solved thanks to the relentless efforts of dedicated police officers and the aid of advanced technology. Their unwavering commitment to justice has brought closure to the families who have suffered the loss of a loved one. On August 18, 2022, one of the detectives assigned to Sharon's case personally visited Terry Nowitzki's, Sharon's sister, at her home in Walker. The detective wanted to ensure that the family received the news of the arrest firsthand. Additionally, the detective spoke with Tina DeYoung, another one of Sharon's sisters, over the phone. "We got him," the detective informed DeYoung, quoting this exact words. DeYoung was left speechless, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. "It's a whirlwind of feelings," she expressed to the police. "I'm happy, but at the same time, I'm filled with sadness." The news of the arrest brought back the pain of losing her sister, but DeYoung expressed her gratitude towards the Kent County Sheriff's Department for their unwavering dedication to solving the case. Unfortunately, Sharon's parents, Jacob and Lois Gross, had passed away before justice could be served. "Mama, we've achieved justice for her," DeYoung whispered on Thursday night, gazing up at the sky. "I'm sorry it didn't happen while you were still with us, but justice will prevail. You can celebrate with her up there." The police had been meticulously investigating the 1990 murders and had spoken with Terry Nowitzki's in mid-May. "We desperately want to know who did this to her. It was an unimaginable tragedy for all the girls, just absolutely heartbreaking," Terry tearfully expressed. Sharon was a devoted sister, daughter, and mother to her 2 children, and her absence is deeply felt. Terry revealed that Sharon was pregnant for 3 to 4 months when she was tragically killed, leaving behind a child we were unaware of. Sharon had big dreams for her children and wanted the best for them. It was heartbreaking to witness her spiral into addiction and end up on the streets, despite her desire to get clean for her kids. The family finally found some solace after the perpetrator was brought to justice. Sharon Hammock was not the only sex worker to meet a tragic fate in Michigan during the 1990s. She was one of 12 victims in the Grand Rapids area, most of whom struggled with addiction and engaged in sex work, making them vulnerable to predators. The bodies were often found in skeletal condition, making it difficult to gather forensic evidence. Lisa Ortberg was the first victim discovered in 1994, while Victoria Moore was the last known victim in 1996. A task force was established to investigate these murders, with officers from various regions coming together to solve the case. The victims were often targeted while working in the red light district of Grand Rapids or had connections to a women's shelter called Rose Haven. Brenda Delecki, the director of the shelter, expressed her belief that a serial killer was at large, given the pattern of these crimes. Lieutenant Carol Price from the task force mentioned in response, "While we acknowledge the possibility, we are not solely focusing on that theory." No charges were filed in any of the cases, but there is now an investigation into the potential involvement of Artman in the deaths of not only Sharon, but also other sex workers in Grand Rapids. It is also being considered that he may have committed similar crimes in states like Maryland. If he did indeed use his transient trucker lifestyle to abduct and harm vulnerable women, it could mean that many families who have been searching for answers about their missing loved ones may finally find closure. After 6 years, progress has been made in solving a long-standing cold case in Colorado. Back in 1988, unidentified human remains were discovered in a field located in Baka County. As a result, Jane Doe was laid to rest in a local cemetery. This particular narrative revolves around the unearthing of human remains on the desolate terrain of a Colorado farm in early June 1988. Transforming into a cold case, it would take another 30 years before it could be resolved. Whose remains were they? How did the enigma gradually unfold? In 2022, the long-standing cold case of Nora Castillo, a 34-year-old woman, was finally resolved. This intriguing story takes place in Springfield, Colorado, a small town located in the southeastern corner of the state. With a population of over 1,000 residents, Springfield is primarily known for its farming and ranching community. Surprisingly, the town had no idea that a perplexing mystery had unfolded on its land back in 1988, which would take more than 3 decades to unravel. On June 3, 1988, the Baka County Sheriff's Office received a call from a local farmer in Colorado. The farmer reported the discovery of what he believed to be human remains on his farm, situated approximately 20 miles southeast of Springfield in Baka County. This open field was frequently passed by truck drivers, yet the shocking find remained hidden until that day. Then Sheriff Willard Goff, along with then Coroner Robert Morrow and their team of deputies, promptly responded to the scene. Their initial assessment confirmed that the remains were indeed human. Scattered throughout the property, the remains were in a deteriorated skeletal state. Although most of the human skeleton was present, some bones were missing, and those that remained were discolored and bleached. Remarkably, a portion of the spine still remained connected. The authorities sent the remains to the coroner's office for a thorough autopsy, while investigators meticulously combed the area for any potential leads. Regrettably, despite their efforts, no evidence was found that could unveil the identity of the victim. The Baka County Coroner's Office and the Sheriff's Office dedicated several days to searching the farm with the assistance of the farm operator. They meticulously documented various items discovered on the property and meticulously screened the soil for any possible clues. Unfortunately, their endeavors yielded no results in identifying the remains or shedding light on the circumstances surrounding the person's death or how they came to be in the farmer's field. The remains were so badly damaged that it seemed impossible to uncover any valuable information that could help identify the person. Despite their best efforts, authorities were unable to unmask the individual's identity. After a thorough forensic examination, it was determined that the remains belonged to a young woman, estimated to be between 19 and 24 years old. She was of average height, standing somewhere between 5 foot 2 inches and 5 foot 4 inches, and weighed around 130 pounds. Although her hair was brown, the degraded condition of the remains made it impossible to determine her eye color. The woman was found wearing specific clothing items, including gray corduroy Levi jeans with the leg cuffs hemmed up to a 27.5-inch inseam, a beige-colored winter coat with a white synthetic fur collar and 4-inch fur cuffs, and a 34B bra. Interestingly, a quarter from 1986 was discovered in her pocket. Despite extensive efforts, forensic experts were unable to confirm the victim's ancestry. However, she exhibited characteristics that suggested she may have had Hispanic or Latino, Native American, and European heritage. The woman had undergone significant dental work, including 2 silver cast crowns on the left side of her mouth, indicating a possible connection to Mexico or the border region. Additionally, it was determined that she had likely never given birth. The remains were estimated to have been there for 1 to 3 years before their discovery, and her cause of death was deemed suspicious, most likely a homicide. Unfortunately, without any leads on her identity, authorities were unable to locate any of her relatives to provide closure to her family. Consequently, she was given the name Baka County Jane Doe. In 2005, Jane Doe was laid to rest in the Springfield Cemetery, accompanied by copies of the case information, while the original records were kept at the sheriff's and coroner's office. Despite the lack of significant evidence, authorities remained determined to solve the case and made numerous attempts over the years to identify her. Dental impressions were taken, and the victim's dental records were sent to the National Crime Information Center in an effort to find a match in the missing persons database. DNA samples were also collected and submitted for analysis. Although DNA technology was still in its early stages when it came to identifying victims, an anthropological study was conducted on the remains to gather any possible evidence that could aid in identification. Additionally, a facial reconstruction was created to provide an idea of the victim's appearance. The fillings in her teeth were even examined to determine where she may have been before her death. Numerous potential matches, including dental matches, were received, but each one was ruled out after comparing them with the remains. Press conferences were held to share details about the case and encourage the public to come forward with any information, but unfortunately, no leads were generated. Despite the investigators' diligent efforts, the identity of the deceased remained unknown, and the case went cold. However, after more than 3 decades, unexpected assistance came in 2021 when an investigative intern working for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation contacted the Baka County Sheriff's and Coroner's Office. They requested permission to submit the data from the 1988 Baka County Jane Doe case to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, a national database and resource center for families searching for their missing loved ones, established in 2007. Although there was no immediate breakthrough, the renewed attention to the case brought forth additional resources and possibilities. In an effort to make progress in the case of Jane Doe, Baka County Sheriff Aaron Shiplett collaborated with the Baka County Coroner's Office, pooling their resources together. Members from both agencies dedicated their time to consolidate relevant case information from their respective files into the Sheriff's Office database using the original documents that were nearly 34 years old. Once all the information was uploaded, a team of detectives was assigned to analyze it. Simultaneously, Shiplett reached out to a genetic genealogy lab, hoping that advancements in technology could potentially help identify Jane Doe. In July 2021, the Baka County Coroner's Office established contact with Solved by DNA, a genetic genealogy company based in Castle Rock. This company specializes in investigative genetic genealogy and advanced DNA testing of crime scene DNA or DNA from unidentified human remains. They create a DNA profile from the unidentified DNA and then utilize traditional genealogical research to determine if a suspect or unidentified person may have a place in a family tree based on various DNA databases. However, there was a hurdle in solving the case. Although Jane Doe's DNA records were present in the original investigation files, the technology available at the time was limited, rendering those records insufficient for a familial DNA study. New DNA samples were required to proceed with the investigation. On December 13, 2021, under the leadership of Shiplett, an investigative team from the Baka County Sheriff's Office exhumed Jane Doe's remains from the Springfield Cemetery and obtained fresh samples for familial DNA testing and research. The samples were then sent to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation in Pueblo for analysis before the remains were reburied. Following a brief analysis, the new DNA profile was entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System by the Central Bureau of Investigation. In August 2022, a breakthrough occurred in the case of Baka County Jane Doe. Solved by DNA, a renowned organization, informed the Baka County Sheriff's Office and Baka County Coroner's Office about a potential familial DNA match. They had successfully identified a person through their extensive DNA research who could potentially be a family member of Jane Doe. With this crucial lead, the Baka County Sheriff's Office wasted no time and immediately began their mission to track down and contact other potential family members. Their efforts paid off as they were able to establish contact with several individuals who could be related to Jane Doe. Solved by DNA then requested these family members to submit their own DNA for analysis, an essential step in determining the familial connection. It was a month later, on September 26, 2022, when the Baka County Sheriff's Office received another significant update. The National Missing and Unidentified Persons System informed them about a separate familial DNA match for Jane Doe. This match led them to a person residing in Texas who had submitted their DNA to the McAllen Police Department back in 2004. The individual was desperately searching for their missing mother, Nora Castillo. It was Nora's daughter, Josie Castillo, who had provided her own DNA to the McAllen Police Department in hopes of finding her mother. The missing person report for Nora Castillo had been filed in 1996, even though she had gone missing in 1986 or 1987. The McAllen Police Department's records revealed that the last contact with Nora was a collect call from somewhere in Colorado shortly before her disappearance. After conducting further DNA testing and analysis, the Baka County Jane Doe was finally identified as Nora Castillo. For Josie Castillo, this revelation brought a mix of emotions. Growing up, she hadn't spent much time with her mother as she lived with her father. However, she still cherished memories of Nora as an outgoing person who loved to laugh and smile. Unfortunately, Josie also recalled how social services became involved in their lives when she was just 6 years old, and her sister, Crystal, was 3. During a difficult period in Nora's life, she made an attempt to take custody of them while they were living with their father in New Mexico. Unfortunately, her actions landed her in trouble and eventually led to her imprisonment in Hobbs, New Mexico. From there, she was transferred to a mental institution, and no one saw her again for many years. After their mother mysteriously disappeared, Nora's daughters were left wondering about her whereabouts and how they could find her. Finally, after nearly 36 years, the Baka County Sheriff's Office announced that Nora Castillo's family had discovered her location. Both Josie and Crystal, Nora's daughters, were informed about their mother's fate. Although their hopes of finding her alive were shattered, they were grateful to finally have some closure after all those years of waiting. "This news came out of nowhere, and it's overwhelming," Crystal expressed. Despite still seeking answers about her mother's untimely demise, Josie found solace in knowing where her mom was. "Thanks to genetic genealogy, my heart is starting to heal. There's a sense of healing now," Josie shared. Nora's family has been able to visit her final resting place and the location where she was discovered. However, authorities are still in the dark about the circumstances surrounding Castillo's death. The details of Nora Castillo's death and her presence in Colorado are still under investigation. "This case is being treated as a potential homicide," stated Baka County Deputy Coroner Everett Brizendine. "We're hopeful that we'll receive some tips that will shed light on why and how she died." After 3 decades of being unidentified, Nora finally found her way back to her family. However, even in death, justice continues to elude her.